in many directions. We now have our introduction, our big idea. We have our body, which in this case was 4 ways plants disperse their seeds. Where are we heading next? The conclusion. That's at the bottom. And what's our secret formula? Well, we know the conclusion should repeat this big idea, but use different words. So I'm going to go back and use S, light bulb, so I can break apart that big idea. Who or what are we talking about? Plants. I could write plants, or I could say these living things. What's another way to say plants? I think I'm going to stick with plants. That means that I have to have a different way to say the big idea then, so that I'm not repeating the exact words. So let's see, I have plants and have 4 different ways that they can spread their seeds. Well, how can I say this differently? What if I said this? Plants don't have feet, but they have clever ways to scatter their seeds so they have enough sunlight, food, and space. Let's just use the word survive for the survival of their species. After you repeat all this information, the students are constantly repeating this, acting it out. They say it to their buddies. You're not going to say it anymore. Turn to your buddy, turn to your table, read your lecture notes. When they orally can rehearse the notes and they have control over the information, then I tell them, boys and girls, write out your lecture notes. Start writing. And at first, when you do this, when you say, boys and girls, on lined paper, so make sure they have lined paper at their table, on lined paper, write out your lecture notes. Sometimes when you first do this, the students go, what? We're writing it? I just, again, pretend like I see what I want them to do. I go, ooh, look, people are already writing. I just pretend. And you will be amazed at how students go, oh, okay, and they start writing. Look how you're still talking. Everyone should be talking as they write. Don't leave your lecture notes. So they orally rehearse their lecture notes, they say them over and over again, and they're writing them. Can you work as a table group? Yes, that's what college students do. They work together, they collaborate together, they orally rehearse together as they're writing. You want to have students work as table groups or in partners, so they orally are rehearsing this, practicing it, constantly going back and rehearsing their information with each other, and as they write that they say it aloud. So they have that oral rehearsal and that revision in place. If you notice that you have a group of students who are having difficulty with the concepts, with language, pull them into a small group. The rest of your group is able to work with their table or with their partners. You may have some that need some extra assistance by the teacher. This is a great way for you to pull those kids and scaffold more of their lesson. I don't even worry about those particular children writing it out. I'm just going to have them orally rehearse the information with me. Otherwise, I'm walking around, and as students are writing, I'm helping them with their writing. If I notice the capitals or the periods, or if their sentences don't make sense, I have them go back to their organizer and orally rehearse that. These are your lecture notes. Let's go back to our page where we have a completed lecture notes so that you can see a finished product of a student. On page 147 in your manual is a completed lecture note from a student. Later, that student went back and colored it in. You don't need to color in your lecture notes. This is a completed sample, as well as what they eventually wrote out. I really want to point out here that when I was practicing it, sometimes my sentences didn't make sense. You want to show the students, boys and girls, that's part of this planning, is the rehearsal piece where we're talking. And when we talk, we're saying our ideas and listening to see if they make sense. We're not writing yet. Who wants to write everything out and then constantly be going back and fixing their paper? It's through the language piece that we're revising. And when we do that, we're going to say our ideas, and sometimes they don't sound right. So what do? You go back and you say it again and you say it again until you like how it sounds. That's what a good writer is going to do. First, the ideas need to be put on that paper. Then you're turning the ideas into language. And when you turn it into language, you say it many times until you have those sentences that sound sophisticated and make sense. Once you do that, then you're writing it down. Notice this student has seed dispersal for their title, and they have their entire paper written down from this activity. Again, they did not know this information because this was lecture notes, but look what we ended up with. We ended up with a writing organizer where we had our introduction, just a big idea. We didn't put a hook, just a big idea. We had our body of information and our conclusion. And I was able to teach them the steps of writing while I was giving the information. We were walking through the planning, talking, and finally writing that's necessary when you have your written piece of text, but I was the giver of information. And remember, when students write, they learn the information at even a deeper level, because to write it out means that you have to really understand that information. At this point, your students are front-loaded about seed dispersal, and you may go to your textbook, read more information, and take book notes and summarize book notes. What if I would have just given animals and wind, and then we went to the textbook and we were going to look at water and mechanical? You could have done that as well. There's so many different ways to use these lecture notes. The whole point is twofold. You're teaching students how to write, as well as you're providing background information and concepts in their core subject, so that they are constantly writing throughout the core curriculum. This is a way that I integrated writing into science, but you can use this same methodology in your social studies, your math, any of your core subjects. Remember, when you're front loading, you always have a choice between lecture notes and content vocabulary diagrams. Our next video, I'm going to show you content vocabulary diagrams in order to front load students with vocabulary, as well as giving background about a subject that we are learning about. Let's go to content vocabulary.